The U.S. House of Representatives voted today to hold Trump ally Steve Bannon in criminal contempt of Congress. The former chief strategist for the former president defied a subpoena from the House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack on Capitol Hill. This vote sets up a referral to the Department of Justice, which will have to decide whether to prosecute. Aaron Blake is a senior political reporter at The Washington Post. He's in Annandale, Virginia. Aaron, walk us through this vote. How big a deal is it? Were there any surprises today?
Well, I don't know that it was a surprise that the House voted to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. I do think there was something that was a little bit surprising about the actual votes that were cast, and that was that we saw 9 Republicans vote in favor of this, in favor of holding the president's former top strategist in contempt of Congress. Now, that's a very small minority of the House Republican caucus. But it included a number of members who actually voted against the formation of this committee, voted against having an independent commission that was initially proposed here, and even a couple of members who voted for this after having not supported the president's impeachment. So given House Republican leadership was whipping votes on this, they were telling their members not to vote in favor of holding Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. I think it's significant that there was at least a little bit of a backlash against that call from the party leadership, and that there are at least some Republicans who are willing to say we want to have some more answers to these questions, and we want to have people who might know something actually have to come testify in front of this committee.
So remind us, why does the House committee investigating the January 6th attack want to speak to Bannon? What might he know?
So the short answer to that question is that we don't know what he knows. We know that he has been a very close Trump advisor over the years, even after they had a falling out and he was essentially cast out of the White House early in the president's term. They really had a relationship that continued on after that. I think the really important thing to focus on here is what Steve Bannon said the day before the January 6th Capitol riot. Arguably, nobody really predicted the riot as much as Steve Bannon appeared to, or at least suggested that he might know something about. He said something to the effect of, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. He repeatedly alluded to the idea that this was going to be something that at least sounded more than a peaceful protest that people who organized the rally said it was intended to be. And so I think that leads to questions about whether he was just freelancing and saying things out of school, speculating on what this would be, or if he had some kind of involvement either with the president or with the organizers of this rally, knowing what this ultimately could become, which was a rally that turned into an attack on the Capitol.
Now, there is additional news coming out of Trump world, and that is former President Donald Trump has launched his own independent social media app called Truth Social. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we don't know a whole lot about this right now. We knew that this was something that the former president, had been planning for a long time. There's actually been a competing social media platform that's been put forward by some of his aides called Getter. I think that the history of the president trying to have a platform to remain relevant after his presidency has been somewhat uneven. He had a blog initially that wound up being shuttered after a while because it wasn't really catching on. Certainly, there is competition in the conservative space on social media. There have been a lot of people trying to appeal to those who are disaffected by Twitter and Facebook and want a different experience, one that supposedly doesn't censor people as much. But I also think it's important to note that, as my colleague at the Post, Philip Bump, reported, and as others have reported, the terms of service of this new social media platform that the president has put out there actually have quite a few different restrictions, including a prohibition on talking bad about the platform or the people running it. So I think it just reinforces that despite the former president's talk about social media censorship and how social media platforms should not be censoring people, it recognizes that there is a very real interest in these businesses at least having some say over what can be said on their platforms.
So essentially, you could violate the app's terms of service if you say anything that could be perceived as critical of former President Donald Trump.
The way it's written, it says that it's anything that's perceived as critical in their opinion, and that's a crucial a clause there, I think, of the people who are behind this platform. And I think given that we're talking about a former president who has launched this, you could certainly construe that to mean criticism of the president himself.
All right, Aaron Blake, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Katie.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.